Coming up on Twit, Leo's not here, but we have a great show for you with issues like what the Sprint T-Mobile merger means for your cell phone bill, why an open source DNA database is a lot like taking a Facebook quiz, and what technology makes you truly happy. I'll give you a hint. It's not these Snapchat spectacles I'm putting on right now.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This is Twit, episode 664, recorded April 29th, 2018. Warm, Tushie tech.
This Week in Tech is brought to you by Moogsoft.
Reduce IT alerts and tickets by up to 99%. Visit Moogsoft.com to learn more and sign up for a demo.
And by Quip. Make a fresh start this year with a Quip electric toothbrush. It cleans like a premium electric toothbrush at a fraction of the cost. Visit getquip.com/twit to get your first refill pack free when you purchase any Quip electric toothbrush. And by Stamps.com. Buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it right from your desk. For our special offer, go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone, and enter Twit. And by Aptiv. Aptiv produces audio-based workouts created by certified personal trainers through a mobile app with great music, too. Get 30% off new annual memberships when you visit Aptiv, AAPTIV.com/twit.
It's time for Twit. This is the show where we unpack the week's tech headlines with thoughtful dialogue, one hopes, and many thoughtful guests who are in the tech world. I'm Becky Worley, filling in for Leo Laporte, who is on vacation, we believe, in Japan. Okay, Hello Kitty pencil boxes for everyone when he comes back. I am abandoning my regular Good Morning America post as technology and consumer correspondent to be here for Uncle Leo. But luckily, I am joined by some real pros, interesting folks, mostly from the East Coast, but we'll forgive them that. And we start with a Canadian, which is always a good thing. Georgia Dow is here with us. She is a senior editor at iMore and also hosts anxiety-videos.com. That's your site, because she's also a therapist. Welcome, Georgia. How did you bring these two worlds together?
It was just one of those weird things, tech causes a lot of anxiety, and so I figure I'll fix that, and did a little bit of both. I love technology. Technology is just so much fun, and I like helping people, so it's a good mix in between both. But I'm really excited to be here today. You'll find out why as the show goes on.
Ooh, this sounds like that's a good tease. That's what we call in the business a good tease. So I will go from that to Ben Brock Johnson. He is joining us from Boston. WBUR is his home. He's a tech correspondent for Here and Now, and he has a great podcast on all things Reddit. Endless Thread. You can find it at wbur.org/endless thread. I would imagine, Ben, that having Reddit as the bucket you can pull from, there's constant content there for you, isn't there?
Pretty much anything. It's like having your beat be the internet, which is, that's what I'm used to anyway. So I love it, but it's amazing. We find amazing stories and like really interesting users and talk to them. And it's a lot of fun. I mean, Reddit can be a scary place, but we find a lot of like non-scary stories to tell, and some scary ones too. But it's a lot of fun.
What are some of the elements that make for a great podcast around a Reddit thread? Like, what does it have to have that makes it ideal for discussing in podcast form?
That's a great question. I guess I would say mystery. A little bit of mystery, a little bit of stakes, hopefully high stakes in some way, or interesting stakes, hopefully diverse voices, interesting different kinds of people from different walks of life talking, and something that we can tell in a narrative way. So it's a narrative podcast. think something like This American Life or Reply All or something like that. And so as long as it's like a good story and we can tell it, it's good.
The more things change, the more storytelling is just the basis of everything that we do in entertainment. I love it. Also joining us from Massachusetts is Brianna Wu. She is a game developer, podcaster, and running for Congress for Massachusetts' 8th District. Again, a varied and diverse set of qualifications. How does one go from game developer to potential congressional representative?
Well, I think it's important to remember, I worked as an investigative journalist for many years. I've worked for, all different branches of political campaigns. I've done constituent services. So for me, it was like the sum of my lifetime of experience. One of the things that really brought me to national recognition was Gamergate, a subject that was covered quite a bit on Reddit, I believe. Not always in glowing terms towards me. Basically it was a rash of threats on women in the game industry. We had 2 meetings with the Obama White House asking them to act on threats on my life and life of other women in the game industry, and they chose to do nothing. Law enforcement really failed women, and from Gamergate we kind of saw the birth of the alt-right, and it kind of led to the political dynamics we're seeing in our country today. So I think every woman in America should look at our current state of government and ask yourself, what's holding you back from running yourself?
If that doesn't indicate more need for women and technologists in government, we can also look back just 2 weeks to Mark Zuckerberg's testimony and how useless that was, given the lack of understanding from our representatives. So more
really
technologists in government is better. So good luck to you. I want to start the show today. This so rarely happens on Twit. There was actually big news that broke this morning, and that is in a conference call, T-Mobile CEO John Legere, crazy man, genius, definitely colorful character, announced that T-Mobile and Sprint are going to combine into one company. This is a $26.5 billion merger, all stock. The goal is to better compete with AT&T and Verizon. So we're taking the third and the fourth largest carriers, combining them to a company that would be worth $146 billion to then catapult them into second place. I think I was trying to think about this, good or bad for consumers. Georgie, you live in Canada, and probably the best analog for this is that we saw the aggregation of Canadian carriers down to, Bell, TELUS, Rogers, and not much more. And the competition has shrunk. Is this a good analog for what you think might happen here in the U.S.? That hasn't been great for consumers, right?
No, it rarely is. So we ended up with less choice. Even they kept the company names. So like Fido and Rogers are now one. But in the end, it's just there's less choice for consumers. It's great on a company standpoint. I can completely understand why they would want to do that. And for shareholders, that's wonderful. But for consumers, we end up with much less choice. We have a really horrible system in Canada. We pay through the teeth for very little. And now we have even less.
Do you guys think, anecdotally in your own experiences, are you paying less overall for phone costs than you were, say, 4 years ago? I mean, one thing I have noticed is that it seems like phone turnover is slower. It's more like 3 years instead of every 2 for your average consumer. There's more bundling options for families, more unlimited data plans, but it's really difficult when comparing prices to see if people's overall costs have come down. Do you have a sense of that personally?
I pay way more than I used to.
Yeah, because I want more data. Yeah, no, but I want more data. So we want more data. Our phones do more things. We do more things on them. And so I'm getting more for it. But really, I'm just paying more in the long term. And they really have a difficult, we try to get family plans because there's 4 in our family. And they really make it difficult to be able to get your money's worth out of your plan. So for us, we pay more than we used to.
Ben, you were emphatic that you're paying more. What makes you say that?
Well, I use Google Project Fi, And it is like, even though it's like a way more honorable setup, in my opinion, in terms of like how the bill is set up and how you understand your bill, how you pay, things like that. I'm a data hog and I pay a lot for the data that I use. I mean, I don't have an unlimited data plan through them. And I think I used to have an unlimited data plan through Sprint. And that was, I don't know, maybe $30 cheaper than it is now, 20 or $30. But I think that this is like really, clearly this is bad for options, for, having more options. And I think that just ends up being bad for consumers always. I mean, if our broadband, options as Americans are any indication, then our wireless options as Americans, the fewer they become, the worse it gets for us, I think, both in terms of price and just service generally. I just don't think it's probably not a great sign for consumers.
Brianna, the idea of these big telecom mergers has been floated for a while. And in fact, one was floated during the Obama administration, and they gave a pretty serious beatdown because they felt like it really created a lack of competition that Ben and Georgia are talking about. But we're in a really different regulatory environment right now where Masayoshi Son, who's got an 80% ownership stake of Sprint, met with President Trump last year. We seem to be in a generally positive, less regulation type of an administration, but the telecom, you look at the Time Warner merger, that's hitting some roadblocks. So what's your sense of this? Anything from sort of the government side of whether you think this will actually go through and get approved?
Well, one of the things we did from the very beginning of my campaign is we said we are not going to take money from telecoms, which is very popular in Congress. Like, look at who Verizon has donated to, and it's going to be a lot of people. The reason for that is it's, as you say, like there's a lot of pressure there from the government side to kind of bring all of these together. And they are taking advantage of basically the Republican takeover of all three houses, branches of government to basically get this put through. I agree with you, Ben. I think this is ridiculously consumer hostile. I understand there's a bandwidth argument going along with it that they're using as kind of a pretext. But even going beyond the consumer argument, I think there's an innovation argument that's really worth talking about here. When you have three companies, there's really not an incentive to innovate, not with the services for your phone, not from a cybersecurity perspective. And I really worried that lack of competition is really going to make America just simply less competitive. It's going to add to this environment where you can't even have new companies coming along and getting, market share in an environment like this. So I'm 100% against it. I don't think it's good for consumers. I don't think it's good for the economy. And I would definitely vote against it if I were able to.
Now to play the opposite.
I agree with you, Bree. That's what happened in Canada as well, is that they fought against having new companies come in to use the infrastructure. They were against it, even though like we all pay through our taxes for the infrastructure and being able to take care of it. But they've actually stopped new companies and competition from coming in, which then again hurts the consumer as well.
To play the opposite side of the coin, one of the things that Sprint and T-Mobile are touting is that they'll have increased coverage. Android Central has a pretty good map showing the combined coverage of both T-Mobile and Sprint, and it does really widen it out. And the second thing they talk about is fixed broadband in terms of creating more infrastructure for 5G internet coverage in places where there isn't enough population density to have fixed lines. So, they say that that's providing a public service and that's the innovation they can bring by bringing the companies together. And to your point, Brianna, about spectrum, one of the reasons why they're doing this is because Sprint owns a ton of spectrum that T-Mobile wants to get their hands on. Sprint's kind of going down in terms of their overall customer base, while T-Mobile doubled theirs last year. So the T-Mobile brand is working, but Sprint has all that spectrum, and they see themselves as creating more competition in the marketplace by having three strong companies as opposed to AT&T and Verizon dominating, while then you have like a sub-tier of Sprint and Verizon, and then you go down into the regional carriers. So,
and I understand that argument, and I think those are valid concerns. There are many ways to get there and address those concerns that aren't creating like limiting our choices as consumers from four companies to three companies. You could have Sprint selling T-Mobile bandwidth or lending it. You could talk to the FCC and allocate more bandwidth for these different companies. If you're talking about more coverage, we could create an environment where people could lease basically broadcast towers from other providers. There are a lot of ways to get there that aren't so consumer hostile. The bottom line is, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they have lobbyists, they have lawyers on their side. The only people they're advocating for you is the United States Congress. And I think when they are so eager to give these telecom companies exactly what they're asking for, down to letting them draft the legislation, I just think it leads to nobody really looking out for you.
I also think it's interesting.
People,
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
These companies are people, though. So
yes, okay.
Citizens United.
Yes.
I also think it's interesting to think about just the argument that companies like this make for doing mergers like this, that essentially, it'll allow us to build more infrastructure to underserved areas. I think that is I feel like that's a popular argument to make by companies when they make a push like this. But I don't think it's one, and obviously someone correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's one that usually plays out in reality. If we look at the history of telecom and look at examples of way back in the day, Bell sort of completely leaving out farming communities and just not building infrastructure. And farmers having to create party lines themselves with electric fences and things like that. I think you look at the history of this and you just basically these companies, sure, they'll build infrastructure if it actually means that they're going to make more money and it impacts their bottom line. But making the argument that gaining more capital through this kind of merger is going to give a bunch of areas that don't have good service in the future, or better 5G or something like that. I mean, I do think that this could be good for 5G because of the spectrum ownership of both companies and how they might sort of build that out as 5G comes. But again, I don't think it's not like 5G is not going to come if this merger doesn't happen. And it's not like these companies are going to actually build infrastructure to underserved areas just because this merger happens. So I think it's good to think about that stuff too.
One of the counter arguments here was that the cell phone industry and selling service has been so commoditized, basically, in terms of phones are sort of predictable. There's no huge innovation going on here. Therefore, a little settling in the industry is to be expected. Do you feel that's true, or do you still feel like there's tons more innovation to happen in this space?
I think we're going to cover some stories later on in the show about Apple and their plans for AR and VR. I do agree that our current mobile phone idea is kind of plateaued. I love my iPhone 10, but it's not a huge evolution from what I do with my iPhone 8. But I think coming back to that innovation argument, this is what I would say. We are not going to move towards the future if we aren't really investing in new ideas. One of my economic plans as Congress is I do want to work more closely with the venture capital community. I think that a lot of the regulations they work under were really put in place before we had our tech industry the way it is today. That system works because it's a lot of people fiercely competing against each other. It's worth going back in time and looking at Apple introduced the iPhone. They had to really fight the status quo in the telecom industry and the cellular industry to get that phone out with patches and data and like texting protocols. They really had to go to war to get those things done. So I would argue that settling in the industry, it's not a good thing. It's just going to stop us from getting to that next level of innovation.
Roland in the chat room makes a really good point. He says you usually need 8 companies and no dominant company of those 8 to get an effective market that's more consumer surplus and less producer surplus. Kind of interesting to think about. What does it really take to have competition in these markets? It's just so nice to have breaking news on a Sunday that I had to start with this story. But we have a huge bit of news to talk about with Amazon. What a crazy week they had. So let me take a quick break, have Leo tell you about one of our great sponsors, and then we're going to come back and ask, will you be buying an Amazon robot for your home?
Excuse me, I want to interrupt this fine program. Hello, Leo here in Japan, where I'm very calm and relaxed because I'm not being bugged by IT alerts. Our sponsor today, Moogsoft, specializes in reducing IT alerts, giving you just the alerts you need so there's an actionable thing you can do. Look at this. Wouldn't you love to be here relaxed, enjoying scenery, enjoying life? IT people know how it is when you get those alerts and those tickets and they're lighting up your monitor like a Christmas tree. You're not being productive, you're just being stressed out. No mere mortal can analyze all those alerts and respond to all those tickets. Well, good news, you can immediately reduce the noise with Moogsoft, Moogsoft, Moogsoft AI Ops. Moogsoft AI Ops is an algorithmic IT ops platform that reduces IT alerts and tickets by up to 99%, guaranteed. Imagine that. Doesn't mean you don't get those tickets, doesn't mean you don't get the alerts, but you get the ones that count. Moogsoft's AI Ops platform integrates with all your existing IT tools. Its patented technology correlates events, this is the key, into actionable work items. They call them situations. So you focus on the situation, on tackling the stuff that matters, instead of ping, 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 ping. Let me tell you about one company that uses Moogsoft AI Ops, HCL Technologies. They're a global IT managed service provider, and they build Moogsoft AI Ops into their event management layer, right within their award-winning DryIce platform. What does that do? Oh, well, it's helped its clients streamline operational workflows, reduce time in the, quote, detect to correct life cycle of incident tickets. HCL has experienced a 1/3 reduction in mean time to restore. That lets them support more customers. This is a quote from HCL. More customers with service quality while keeping operational costs low, efficiency high. You want this. Reduce IT alerts and tickets by up to 99%. Visit Moogsoft.com to learn more and sign up for a demo. That means life could be Pacific once again. Thank you, Moogsoft. Find out more. Get a demo at Moogsoft, Moogsoft, Moogsoft.com. And we thank Moogsoft for their support of This Week in Tech. Now, back to the show. Peace and quiet, imagine.
どうもありがとう、レオさん。バキウリです。This Week in Tech がいいよは。Oh, wait, okay, we're not doing the show in Japanese? He's only in Japan? Oh. I had to. I mean, come on. You don't take 2 years of Japanese in college to not take advantage of that joke.
That was
right?
pretty
I mean,
impressive.
Come on.
That was very good.
すごいね。
すごいね。はい、ありがとうございました、Ben san. I used to waitress at a Japanese restaurant, and so I figured that by taking my language elective in Japanese, I could make better tips. And I did.
Did it work?
It did work. You know, I would go up to these sleepy, hungover Japanese businessmen who were there for breakfast. It was in a Japanese hotel, and I would say, "Ohayou gozaimasu, kohi mo orange desu wa?" And they would have their newspaper up, and they'd say, "Mo kohi ga ii de." And then they'd bring their newspaper down, and they'd see me, and they'd go, "Eh?"
So great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was good. When I graduated from college, I got recruited for my Japanese, strangely enough. The options were the CIA and an escort service in Kyoto.
Oh my goodness.
I chose neither. Here I am, a tech reporter.
You could have gone into game translation. You could have had you could have translated like a Final Fantasy game.
I know.
I'm thinking go CIA, but that's just me.
I didn't know which one was sort of morally more questionable.
I would assume that they were combined, but that's...
I mean, if you watch the Homeland, you would think they are, right? It seems they're very commingled, right? Okay, This is a tech podcast. My bad. Big week in tech. It was earnings week for pretty much everybody but Apple, and it was just. I don't think I've ever seen a week like this where profits were so good. Beating the street and expectations. That didn't always mean that the stock prices went up commensurately, but let's start with Amazon because sales were up 43%. Their profit more than doubled. They have 100 million Prime members. So, just to put that in perspective, whenever I think about Prime, I think about Jeff Bezos sitting down with the CEO of Costco, who was one of his mentors. And that was really the goal, is to create a Costco-sized online shopping community. And they have now beaten Costco. Costco has 90 million members, and Amazon Prime now has over 100. So, anything that you guys want to say on just Amazon slaying profits and just owning online shopping?
Well, I'll say my story. So I never used Prime before, and then I'd made the mistake of kind of taking Amazon's gateway drug, which is the free 30 days. I kind of did it by mistake. I clicked on something improperly, and then I was kind of signed up for the free month. And then I got the next day, Prime delivery, and I went, that was awesome. And then I did it again and I went, oh, this is amazing. Then I started going through and it's free. And I'm like, oh, this is great. They deliver it to my door. They just drop it off. And then my month was coming up to an end. And my husband's like, we should cancel it now. And I went, maybe let's just keep it for the year. And that was it. Now I am one of the 100 million.
Yep.
And I got in right before they increased the price. So that's great because now it's like 119 Americans. So it's like just made it. And I'm still really happy about it. I know.
How does
Aren't
that
they
work?
about to increase the price again?
Yeah,
Aren't they about to do it again? A couple bucks?
They're going to May 15th,
Yeah, they're bumping it up,
soon.
but I thought everybody got bumped up, that you didn't get grandfathered in.
I don't know if we're paying monthly or if we paid in a lump sum. I have no clue. I think that we paid in a lump sum. I don't know. I'm not sure, but either way, I'm still staying.
They said that they're bumping up the cost of Prime to $119 a year because so many people are shopping with Prime that they have to do that to cover the shipping costs.
Shouldn't it be cheaper?
Give me
once
a
more
break.
People are part of it. I don't know if I buy that, but I'm still paying it. I don't care. Go ahead, Bree.
No, I was just going to say, I am part of the problem. Like right now, Amazon accounts for, by some estimates, 44 cents of every dollar spent on the web. That is a huge, huge, huge part of the profits. And what's more concerning to me, places like Jet, which have an alliance with Walmart, have tried to compete and they've found themselves unable to. I love Prime. Like when a new game comes out, I just have it sent to my door. My groceries are Prime. I am absolutely part of the problem. But I do think it's worth saying this monopoly is something that should give all of us pause. Also buried in this story was AWS accounting for a large portion of that profit. I think that's very, very interesting. The service we use to facilitate my campaign and all of our data and our fundraising, Nation Builder, they had a failure 2 weeks ago, and they moved all their services over to AWS. That's not the only one. So I feel like there's like a good story here with seeing how successful AWS has been, but there's like a cautionary tale in seeing what a behemoth Amazon is and how really no one else in the industry seems to be able to stand up.
One thought on that around, I'm going to take AWS out of the equation and just talk about shopping for a second, because when you think about all of the third-party sellers that are involved in Amazon and also at Walmart, it really puts Amazon's ecosystem in a different perspective to me. I think Amazon is, as the internet was when it first started, Amazon is online shopping of the future. They're so good at fulfillment and the entire process, and they have a patent on one-click shopping. So I feel like that is the future of internet shopping, and that we're almost fighting against that just consolidation in a way, because they're just doing it better than everyone else. I do think Walmart is competitive because they are just stealing from the same playbook and trying to do the same thing at scale. So there is at least one competitor there. But I kind of feel like the train is barreling down the tracks and there's very little chance of stopping it.
I would agree with that. But I also think, I guess I would also agree with Brianna, just in terms of, we all need to be thinking about this, even though we're like, raise your hand if you're part of the problem, which maybe we all are. But I do think that this company is really starting to become the thing that we've always joked it will become, which is this, massive company that's sort of, well, something like that. I mean, a lot of those AWS contracts are government or U.S. government contracts, which is a whole other thing. But I think that, we were just talking about choice in telecom, right? And again, we all use this service. It's really the most effective service, and it's wonderful and it's great. And when you buy stuff online really easily and it comes to your door, that's wonderful. But again, we're getting to this place where when Amazon says, "Oh, I'm just going to charge more for Prime because it costs a little bit more for us to ship," I think that starts to get scary, because you're like, oh, you can just do that, and I have to now pay for that, and I don't have other options. And I also think, at least for me, a lot of the stuff that I was seeing in my feeds this week was this the comment or the headline that Amazon has paid zero income taxes as a company, and I think that we also have to think about the benefits that the company gets as it has gotten as it's sort of become this behemoth. And I don't know what that means for the future of commerce online, at least in the U.S. I mean, we haven't talked about Alibaba, but I don't know. It starts to concern me, I guess, when I look at the headlines about the company all week, and just how big it's become finally.
But it's not just Amazon, right?
Sorry.
Say again, Georgia.
Sorry. Well, it's not just Amazon. What's happening with companies is they're becoming almost too large to fail, so powerful that we kind of need them to be a part. The government, they send so much money towards the government because they're allowed to do that, that in the end, they have kind of the government inside of their pocket. And I think that there's a huge problem with the fact that there are other options. Like, you could go out and go and buy your stuff. But the thing is, we're lazy by nature. We're not going to do that. And if we don't have an oversight by a government that actually has knowledge of this and an understanding of how this works, these companies are going to get bigger and bigger. And at some point, we're going to be so reliant on them that really almost anything that they ask, we're going to be kind of beholden to. And that's really a scary thought. And I think that that's the way that they're going. And the government has not yet really looked in on what are they going to do about it. And taxes are one thing, but that again, like, people want to keep Amazon there. In the end, Amazon will move to wherever it is most profitable for them to be able to do business.
I was just going to add on a discussion. I agree with everything you just said, Georgia. There is a precedent for how Amazon behaves when it is a monopoly, and that is looking at the way that they've treated authors. I think if you talk to anyone in the book industry about the trends in that field over the last 10, 15 years, they're not going to have a lot that's positive to say. We talked a lot when the App Store came out and Apple decided to take 30% of every single purchase. Well, Amazon takes 70% of the purchases when it comes to books through Kindle, which is functionally a monopoly. Even more disturbing to me personally is some of their behavior that they've engaged with as far as basically getting writers under certain deals and giving them more money than like private publishers can to get exclusives on their platform. I think you've seen them act in a very anti-competitive way. If I were fortunate enough to serve in Congress, like I like Amazon, I use Amazon, but I am very disturbed by some of their behavior. So I do think that my job and the job of any government official is to make a playing field that's even, a playing field that's fair, where other companies can come through and offer new products.
Circling back in my consumer reporter duties here, CompTR is helping me in the chat room. He says they will, for current Prime customers, they won't raise rates until mid-June if you're a Prime subscriber. So I guess at least that you got that going for you. One other, a couple other pieces of Amazon news. Early in the week, Mark Gurman at Bloomberg reported that Amazon, out of their Lab 126, listed jobs for software engineer robotics, principal sensors engineer, and the idea is that they have something called Project Vesta. Again, this is not confirmed by Amazon, but reported by Mark Gurman, which is a home robot, which could come to consumers as early as 2019. Now, they say this, he says this is not in conjunction with their warehouse robotics division. You remember they bought Kiva Systems back in 2012. This is really the way that it's been sort of bandied about. It's like Alexa following you around your house on wheels. And the speculation around what would it do, why would you need it, and would you buy it, raises some interesting questions. We've seen some pretty huge home robot fails from Sony to various and sundry others. Anyone thinking that Amazon's going to crack this nut?
I don't think so anytime soon. I'm all in for a home robot. I have robot vacs in the past, and I really want a robot, but I'd want a robot that could do something. And I don't know if I would be trusting to have Amazon in my home following me around. So that might be the area that I deal with. Though I love the little Toyota Japanese robot, but I see, Becky, you could get it because he was cute and adorable and would talk to you. But I don't speak Japanese because I would totally have bought it. I might learn Japanese just so I could get. He's so cute. That's what I want. I want something that's like warm and fuzzy. And I know it's scary and I should probably be completely against it because I'm a psychotherapist. I should know better. But I'm all in for a home robot. I really am. I really am. Go ahead, Bree. Tell them how bad I am for that.
No. Well, Georgia, let's be honest. If Amazon put out a NES Rob robot, you'd have 10 in your home. Just admit 10.
It. You're right. Yeah, it's true.
Would. You're part of the problem.
I will give in so quickly.
I'm just trying to figure out what this thing would do in your home, because everyone's talking about, it'll be, we're not talking about the Kiva Systems robots, which will like go grab things in your home. Plus, if you've ever been in a warehouse where everything's clearly marked and labeled and there are big, wide open passageways, that's a place where robots can manage the environment. My home with two 10-year-old children and the slob that I am and a chihuahua and a dog, another big dog, that robot's going to make it about 2 feet before it's tangled in something. So I kind of can see, the two scenarios I can see is that you have a speaker and an Alexa following you around if you want the music to go with you in different rooms, or a security system. I like the idea of sort of a perimeter security. And Amazon did, strangely enough, list security services on their website this week as one of their service options. But those are about the only scenarios I can think of. Ben, anything I'm missing?
I haven't. I actually have a home robot. It is amazing. I've been wanting to get one for a really, really long time. And I saved up and I went and I picked it out and I finally got it. And it's a dishwasher, and it's just it does everything that I need, and it's amazing. No, I don't think that this is going to happen convincingly for another decade, personally, at least in terms of like actual hardware that does something that you want it to do. To me, the connectivity issue is really the issue in my mind. Just what are the things in your house connected to? Are they connected to the actual internet, or are they connected to an Ethernet or a sort of a local network? And for me, like, I don't have a smart speaker in my house. because I'm a little bit skeptical of what that speaker actually does for me. I guess I do in my phone, right? But in terms of the hardware of a robot, I don't think that that's going to be like convincing and amazing anytime immediately. Although obviously, if Amazon's starting now, maybe in 10 years they'll have this incredible robot. But again, like, to me, it's about its connection to the internet and what it actually does. If it's sort of like a local machine that interacts with your smart home in a localized way and isn't trying to like sell you new brawny paper towels every time your kid spills something while it's following you around, then like, okay. But yeah, I don't know. That's my take.
Ben, I have to say, I'm really surprised you would give that take, because we're both Bostonians. I mean, we have iRobot that's here. They can't even hire enough engineers over there to build the products that they want to build. That's part of the Massachusetts tech pipeline problem. We have Boston Dynamics. Sure. So when the Terminators come to life, like Ben and I are going to be the first ones dead. Like, that's right here in our town, the killer dog robots.
Send me a text free when they come for you.
I will let you know to run. And also, if you go over to MIT, I'm not gonna say like things I see over there, but you have students building some truly amazing things with robotics over there. So like, if you're saying 10, 15 years to a pipeline to new things coming out, I really don't agree with that. They have
well, I'm talking about consumer, for the consumer. To me, that's that's what I'm imagining. I'm imagining something that I can actually afford. I don't think I can afford the big robot, so I guess that's what I mean.
Guys, laundry, folding, robot.
Yeah.
Bring me that robot tomorrow.
So,
I don't care how much it costs. We are buying that. Yeah. It is the functionality issues. I love I have the Neato vacuum robot, and that thing is incredible. How do you find that?
Because I used to have the Roomba, but it kept on breaking down.
No,
and
Neato's great.
That Megan also likes it.
It's good, especially if you have quite a bit of carpet, because it's a little bit more of a vacuum than a sweeper. So I'm bullish on the robotic vacuums. Although I don't know who it was in the chat room who said that robotic vacuums are made to vacuum money out of your bank account because they are ridiculously expensive. Another little note in this battle for the home that came out this week that's really interesting. Alphabet, Google's parent company, announced its earnings. They did very well also. Sales were up. Let's see, operating income came in at $7 billion versus $6.6 in 2017, for what that's worth. But one of the little tidbits that came out of their report, Nest, they're desperately trying to get Nest to compete with and get a real foothold in the home. It made about $726 million in revenue, but it cost them $621 million. So, I mean, they're spending more than $500 million to get Nest into the home with security cameras, alarm system, video doorbells. They know that this is the next frontier for owning the ecosystem. And I'm not quite sure where that battle is going to end up, but I feel like Google is losing the home because Alexa just dominates the speaker category.
Yeah. I mean, I have an entire range of Nest products. Last time I was on the show, Twit was sponsored by a competitor to a Nest product. It was vastly superior because Nest products, like their camera. If you want to have an outdoor camera, you have to go onto Amazon and buy like an outdoor jacket for it with the heat sink like that you glue on the back of the camera if you live in hot weather to like just see stuff outside. Their thermostat is kind of a nightmare to work with. And what really worries me is I'm not seeing them update the software. I'm not. It's the exact same today as it was like 3 years ago when I bought it. And I don't see them upping security either. So I do think that Google kind of has to play in this space if they're going to be competitive. Like 20 years from now, smart home is going to be the norm. And I see Apple making kind of mediocre moves in the space. Amazon has been very successful.
Fell off a cliff.
HomePod is terrible.
not made inroads there.
See, I love my HomePod. I love it.
Yeah.
I like Siri's, she's a fickle creature, but I love my HomePod. And the thing is I would never trust having Amazon or Google in my house. Their privacy is, it's a Swiss cheese. Like there's really more air than there is security for us on our end. Yeah. And so anything where I am the product, I don't want to have inside of my home and with my kids.
Well,
I think that
great point on the kids aspect too, because with HomePod it's $349, so it's way too expensive to go into a kid's room. But this week Amazon announces Echo Kids. It's an Echo Dot that's $30 more than your standard Echo. But they say it has a lot of kid features, Georgia. They say it has no shopping, no ordering Ubers. That's good, kids.
Yeah.
It can block explicit songs, but interestingly enough, Amazon's music doesn't have clean versions, the way that Apple Music has clean versions. You can turn it off at certain times, and it comes with a colorful, prime colors only, very Lego, rubber case, and they'll replace it if you damage it within 2 years. They also have this free time unlimited service that I do love. It's unlimited audiobooks and books that you can listen to for kids, which is a nice element of it. But this is the thing I realized this week when my kid said to Echo in our kitchen, "Echo, what's 6 times 7?" I went, "Oh no!"
Right.
Oh, no.
Well, what they're selling, right, is like a babysitter, a free babysitter for your kids. I think that for a lot of parents that would be salient, but I don't know. I want my kids to be able to be bored, to have to struggle with things. I don't want them to suddenly always be being read to and cared for by their Amazon Echo. And I think that they don't go through how, what the information that they get from your child is going to be used towards. And I think that that's a really big deal. And I think that now we're talking about privacy and how that's important. I think that people have been a little late to the game and a little bit too trusting of these really large companies to be able to police themselves, which no company, no person really, we can't police ourselves. We're horrible at that. Companies are always going to keep their company's interest first. But there was one feature that kind of did make me go, oh, that's kind of cool, which was the intercom feature. So I could be like, oh, come downstairs now. I need you to do something. And I went, oh, I do like that, though.
It's very 70s. Remember those intercoms that were on the wall?
I love
those.
Becky and Georgia, I'd love to ask you, though, and I'm coming at this as a non-parent, but the only reason I'm able to run for office today is because social media did not exist when I was a teenager. Doesn't it give you pause that, if you look at the way Amazon's Echo is constructed, there's not end-to-end encryption like there is with Siri. There's no differential privacy like there is with an Apple product. Doesn't it give you pause that you're kind of asking your child to start their life with everything they think, say, or do being quantified by a system that is designed to pick up an uncomfortable amount of data on them? The Wall Street Journal had a story about this recently. It was aimed more at Apple, but it was like showing all the data you get just from an evening of ordering a pizza and taking some pictures and posting it to social media. And it's going to be that much worse on an Amazon product. I mean, does that give you pause, or am I just out of touch?
For me, yeah. Like I don't have my kids on social media. They're not allowed. And I monitor how much, and I love tech everywhere, right? If you take a look at my house, it's like a tech, you could sell stuff. I could run it out of my garage with the amount of tech that I have, but my kids aren't on tech. They end up paying for the time that they are on technology. They're not allowed to have social media accounts. I don't want them messaging and chatting with things, but it's funny. I tried to put all these restrictions, and then the school has a Google account and they have to hook up to Hangouts to do this project or that project. And so it's interesting, even though I really do try to delay their involvement in technology for as long as you can, because if there was social media when I was a child with all of the stupid things that I did, I would never be able to be a psychotherapist. It would be horrible. No one would go to see me. Yep. Bree and I did a show together. Like, just even with that, I was like, oh God, some of the stuff that we would do.
I'm just waiting for the attack ads, Georgia. Those are coming.
Yeah, Yeah, it is a dilemma, isn't it? Though, how old are your kids, Georgia?
They're 12 and 9.
Oh yeah,
So
you're
they're
in prime
just
time
at that
coming up
age.
on.
Yes. How old are yours, Becky?
I have a boy-girl 10-year-old twins, and they have.
Twins?
Our policy is, luckily we do this for a living, so we have the opportunity to be nuanced in the way that we think about it. And so my policy with my kids, they don't have a phone or an iPad or anything like that. And that's actually why I like Amazon, because it's a way for them to get music without screen access. Because otherwise, what are we listening to? Old CDs? It's really difficult if you don't have a device.
8-track.
Right?
Gotta be 8-track.
So that's one of the only ways that they can get music is through Amazon, which is connected to Sonos through various parts of our house. But my policy is a little different. It's not about the specific gadget. They don't get any screen time. What they get is tool time. If they want to use GarageBand to make music, if they want to use, as my daughter, when she was much smaller, used to say, "Mommy, can I use microscopic Word? I want to write." So that anything they want that's tools for creative work, they can have as much time as they want, but they get no toy time. They can't treat technology as a toy, so they don't get games or YouTube or any of that. I know, I heard that gasp, Brianna.
Sorry.
That's hardcore.
Sorry, I was having flashbacks to when my parents had this conversation with me in the 80s. So
I know.
sorry.
I won't even let my kids play Minecraft. That's how hardcore I am. I'm like quasi-Waldorf in this. So bear with me. We're going to get to the Labo later.
I feel like I grew up and like my parents are like, "You're never going to make anything of yourself, Brianna, if you don't get off that Nintendo." And here I am. I'm one of the best known game developers like in the industry.
I love it. Now, the parents never know. It's the unintended consequences. Now, on that note, the one other thing I want to mention about the Echo Kids, it rewards kids for politeness. So when you say,
this is crazy.
Please, it will come back to you later and say, "Hey, thanks for saying please." And I have just noticed this with myself and with my kids, and we've been talking about the fact that we're really rude to artificial assistants, and so we've been working on it. Do you think that'll make a difference?
But it doesn't. It still replies if you don't say please.
True.
I think that for kids, it's like a reward is like it's saying thank you. They won't notice. If your children are naturally rude to assistants, they'll never know that it would reward them for saying please and thank you. I would be much happier if it forced them to be able to say, or all of us to be able to say please and thank you, because it does become a habit. If you say please and thank you enough, even if by force, you will end up doing it, as Canadian as I am, even when you don't want to. It's so true. Ben, what do you think?
Georgia, I think that's weirder though. That creeps me out a little bit more. I feel like if a robot is changing my behavior, even if it's for the better, or if like an AI is like telling me how to behave, I don't know. That creeps me out too. I don't know why. Even if it's please and thank you, creeps me out.
Canadian robots are bad, is what you're saying.
All right. We can't get into a cross-border AI battle in this moment, but I do have one last Amazon thing I want to ask you guys about. We have seen Amazon using delivery folks who go into your home using digital keys to put your deliveries inside the door. Well, this week they started rolling out delivery to the trunk of your car. So, would you feel more comfortable? Now, this is using OnStar technology, so it's all remote, and the delivery person is monitored by the OnStar folks in a way they go in, they put it in the trunk, then they close it. The OnStar person confirms with them that the trunk is closed and that the items have been delivered. Right now, I think it only works with some GMs and Volvos. And actually, when I was doing a story on the home delivery, and the delivery guy was beta testing it, and he said people love it because they get things delivered to the trunk of their cars when they're at work. So, would you feel more comfortable letting an Amazon delivery person put things into the trunk of your car or inside the front door of your home? What do you think?
I mean, I have a Porsche, so good luck with that. Like deliver those Tic Tacs and have thank you. I appreciate it. Just put the box of Tic Tacs back there. I I don't know. For my particular use case, I'm not home enough to like guarantee when my home is going to be there. My car is going to be there. I have no issue letting people into my home. Like it's so wired up. I personally wouldn't feel bad about that. But I know, Georgia, you feel very differently.
You know what? I actually love this idea. It's funny because I don't like Amazon, the thought of Amazon. I would never hook up Amazon, which, we've heard the myriad of problems with, doors not being locked, people locking the wrong doors and coming in. That gives me the creeps. I wouldn't want to have them come inside of my house because I would be worried about, just safety when I'm sleeping and it would bother me. But for my car, I feel really, I don't know, I think that would be a great idea. If you were moving, you could be able to deal with that. If you have something that you need to pick up, or even if you are homeless for a period of time and you don't have an actual place of residence, or you're in a hotel, you could still get your deliveries brought to you because there's a certain radius of where you're located that you can have your car at. And so I think in that way, it's really wonderful. And for my car, I'm like, there's only so much you can take from my car besides the car, right? I guess. I don't know what if someone steals your car because they they say that they're not going to, they're going to make sure that they're not going to leave until it's actually locked. And they're not even going to get to see the next delivery until there's a security measure in place that the car has been locked. But I wonder, the only thing is if they, something does happen and it's not locked, they thought it was, and the car gets stolen, who covers that? I would assume Amazon. But I think that there's a lot of use cases of separation. You're getting a divorce. You might need to have something delivered to you that is private. I think that there's a lot of use cases that this might be beneficial. And if, Amazon leaves it usually outside on my doorsteps, that's a little bit less secure than opening up my car trunk and closing my car trunk afterwards. It's harder to steal if there's something that's really expensive. I would feel safer putting it in my car.
All right. Well, on that note, we are going to take a quick break. Big week for Facebook also. Surprising result after all the brouhaha. When the numbers come in, nobody cares. But we're going to find out about that after the break.
Our show today brought to you by My Fresh Breath. Actually, you can't smell my fresh breath, but it is, I assure you. Actually, it's brought to you by Quip. I love this toothbrush. I was so proud of my daughter. She's 26. She called me a couple of weeks ago. She said, Dad, because I've been trying to get her to use Quip for a long time. Actually, I've been just trying to get her to use any electric toothbrush. She was a manual brusher, which meant, she brushed sometimes and she brushed a little bit and maybe not as long as she should have, all of that stuff. It's hard when you're just doing it by hand to do it for 30 seconds for every quadrant, 2 minutes brushing and do it right in the right motion and all. It's hard. It really is. And people just don't do it. So I don't know what it was, but she called me the other day and she said, all right, Dad, I'm ready. I need an electric toothbrush. My wrist is killing me. I said, oh, honey, thank you. And I got her a Quip. We've had Quip for some time. Quip is so cool. It is the best electric toothbrush, brand new, just the right amount of vibration into a slimmer design. It's a fraction of the cost. I mean, it really is. And I love it because it's battery powered, so there's no wires. There's no charger. It just takes a AAA battery. You put it in there. That lasts a long time. I haven't changed it in more than a month, so I mean a long time. The Quip holder has a little adhesive pad on the back, so you can, and this is what I do, put it right on the mirror. So it's right there. It's perfect for travel, by the way, because there's no charger. So it's light, easy to carry. I brought 3 Quips to Japan, one for me, one for Lisa, and one for Michael. When it comes to your teeth, brushing your teeth, one of the most important parts of your day. And by the way, I think you should do it at least twice a day. I guess dentists say after every meal. With Quip, it's so affordable. You could have one at work and have one at home. Quip makes it the best way to brush. They have 30-second guiding pulses, so they go in between. So you brush for 30 seconds, left, lower left, upper right, lower right. They have a little booklet that tells you all of this stuff. So you get exactly the right amount of brushing. They tell you how to brush. It's compact, it's light, and it is always clean because after all, the thing you put in your mouth should be clean because you get a subscription plan, just as the dentist recommends, delivering new brush heads every 3 months, and it's just $5. And that's free shipping. If you want, you get the Quip toothpaste, too, so you don't even have to think about supplies. You're just ready to go. Quip is backed by a network of over 10,000 dental professionals. These are dentists, dental hygienists who recommend and use Quip. You even, like I said, you get this booklet with tips on oral care. I'm here. I am. I've been brushing for a long time, like 60 years. I never knew that you're not supposed to rinse after you brush, that the fluoride in the toothpaste sinks in and you don't want to rinse it out yet. You want to wait a little bit. I didn't know that. I know it now. I never rinse anymore after I brush. I wait a little bit. Took me a while to get used to that, but this is you learn how to do it. By the way, you won't mind so much. Quip's toothpaste is delicious, fresh, minty fresh. It strengthens your teeth, gives your mouth the perfect clean feeling. No wonder Time magazine named Quip one of the best inventions of the year. I don't think any other toothbrush got that. Quip, it starts at, get this, I don't even want to tell you what I paid for my last electric toothbrush. I've always used electric toothbrushes. My dentist highly recommends it. I recommend it. Just because it's easier for you and it does a better job. And you're more likely to brush, frankly. So I've been using one for years, but the last one I bought was like more than $100. Quip, $25. $25. And if you go to getquip.com/twit right now, you'll get your first refill pack free when you purchase any Quip electric toothbrush. It is a great deal. We actually got a couple of extra because when kids come for sleepovers, they never bring toothbrushes for some reason. But now we got them, and we got enough heads so that each one has their own head. We put a little label on it. Get your first refill pack free. Getquip.com/twit. GETQUIP.com/twit. I highly recommend this one. Really do. Now back to Twit.
Thank you, Leo, who is on vacation. Becky Worley here from Good Morning America, ABC News, joined by 3 East Coasters. One in Canada, Georgia Dow of imore.com and anxiety-videos.com. Thanks for joining us. In Boston, we have we have Ben Johnson. That's not, there you are. Hi there. Yes. He is at WBUR and hosts a great podcast on Reddit. And then Brianna Wu, who is also from Boston, running for the 8th District for Congress, game developer, technologists in general. Hey, Ben, I have a quick question for you. Why is it WBUR? As someone who went to school in Vermont and knows the whole Burlington scene, I would always think the WBUR would be the Burlington station. Why is a Boston station BUR?
I have no idea. But, I have a hat.
Okay.
So I hope that counts for something.
Well,
no, I haven't been there long enough. I think it could have something to do with the fact that GBH is also in Boston, and I don't know, some early days call signs. I have no idea.
Right. That's all the whole. The W's are all in terms of broadcasting.
It's Boston
all the
University.
That makes sense. Anything that's a W is east of the Mississippi, and anything that's a K is west of the Mississippi. Anything that's, if you're east of the Mississippi, it's called Hellman's mayonnaise. If you're west of the Mississippi, it's called Best Foods mayonnaise. Did you know these arcane things about the Mississippi and the east-west divide?
Important lines. I think it's probably just Boston University Radio. That's probably what they stand for, and it's at BU. So yeah.
Now I'm with you.
That's it.
Genius.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to the Facebook. The Facebook is basically printing money right now is what we learned this week, and that nobody cares that they're eating your privacy alive. Now, granted, this is sort of a trailing indicator as opposed to a leading indicator as we look at their earnings that came out this week. 2.2 billion monthly active users, almost 1.5 billion people using the site every day. Both those numbers are up 13% from last year at this time. And this is the one that kills me. Profits are up 63%. So if you're working at a company that made $100 last year, they just made $163. That's a huge jump in profits. Normally these profits and earnings reports are like, but this one's interesting because the timing where it's falling. Wired Magazine did a little bit of investigative work where they called out to some of the digital ad agencies to see if any of their clients were shying away from Facebook. And if anything, these agencies said their clients love Facebook more because they now have a better understanding of how detailed the targeting is.
Becky, Becky, I have a lot to say about this because it's like I've actually spent, ever since Zuckerberg testified, I've spent the last 3 weeks raising money by running anti-Facebook ads on Facebook for my campaign. And,
Meta.
It took a few tries for us to get it past them, but we finally succeeded. Like
They didn't stop you.
Study the meta.
I'm sorry. What was that, Georgia?
They didn't even care. They're like, yes, give us your money.
Give me the money. Give me the money. So, look, the truth is you cannot run a modern political campaign and not be on Google and Facebook and Twitter. It's just a freaking fact. So expecting like this magical future where consumers are going to walk away from Facebook and all of their friends, it's just not reasonable. And expecting businesses to not continue operating in this, duopoly client that we have, it's just not reasonable. So again, this comes down to, I feel like the mood from this is like, oh, nobody cares. Facebook is going to get away with it. End of story. It's not the end of story because it's the role of regulators and people running for Congress like me to actually step in and regulate this and do the right thing. I don't expect, Ben, your grandmother to understand this and quit Facebook. I don't expect normal people to do that. As technologists, it's everyone here. This is our role to fix this and put reasonable regulations into place.
Can I just stop you for 1 second? Because you just did something truly amazing that only happens when there are 3 women and a man on a panel. You didn't just say, I don't expect your mom to quit Facebook.
Yes.
You just said, I don't expect your grandpa to quit Facebook.
Yes,
that was remarkable. So I'm just going to acknowledge that.
I have neither, but my mother is much more tech savvy than my father is. So
there we go.
There we go.
No.
There we go.
I don't think anybody that is in, I have on Facebook, I have the technology folks, I have my media folks, and then I have a lot of my family, which are Central New York and Massachusetts, and they could care less, have mentioned nothing about this, and it doesn't seem to be on their radar whatsoever. So Joe Q Public, my read on this is not registering. That being said, Brianna, it is a policy issue if we care. But what was so scary about the testimony that was given is they think they should care, but they don't understand how to care. Does that make sense?
They were also given a whole bunch of money beforehand to help them, be able to swallow that pill. They got a whole bunch of honey to be able to swallow that pill a little bit more easily, and it worked really well. But I think I'm the same way, Becky. Most of the people that I know that are not really, highly into tech, like just regular users, not only do they not care, many of them don't know at all. They have never heard of Cambridge Analytica. They don't read tech stories. I think that a lot of people find tech really scary. And so they have no clue that this is even happening, no clue what information Facebook has been garnering for them, and they don't even know that this is a movement that's happening. So we've started talking about it, but I think Bree's absolutely right, where she says we really do need to have the government step in and to be able to, we need to put people in place that understand tech so that they can make sure that we are protected.
Meanwhile, in a move
I think
to
there's
avoid
another group of people that also don't think that I think there's another group of people that also actually don't think it impacts them. And it's not necessarily about not caring, but it's I use Facebook
Mm-hmm.
as the white pages. That's how I use Facebook. And I'm never on there. I'm literally never scrolling Facebook, right? I go on Facebook if I need to contact someone, and that's the best way for me to contact them. And so I am also one of those people. I'm one of those people who's like, I don't need to worry about the ads. Because I'm not behaving. I'm not really, I am a Facebook user, but I don't have a lot of behavior on Facebook. I haven't downloaded my data yet. I thought that piece in the Times was really interesting. But I do think that there's a large portion of people here that literally don't think that this impacts them. And I feel like we need to talk about that too, as the country, as the U.S. and I guess Europe and obviously Canada as well, talk about data and these services.
In a bid to avoid regulation, one thing that we're seeing coming out this week is that Facebook is articulating what its community guidelines are. I think they care because they don't want to see any flight from the site. I'm going to hit a couple of the highlights here and get your take on it. First of all, hate speech. They say we define hate speech as a direct attack on people based on what we call protected characteristics, race, ethnicity, national origin, religious affiliation, sexual orientation, sex, gender identity, serious disability. We provide some protection for immigration status. That was interesting to me. And then the next one that was of the most interest was fake news, although they call it false news. We want to help people stay informed without stifling productive public discourse. There is also a fine line between false news and satire or opinion. For these reasons, we don't remove false news from Facebook, but instead significantly reduce its distribution by showing it lower in the newsfeed. That line is at the crux of this element of the Facebook problem to me. They don't know where they stand on this, in my opinion.
Yeah. I have to say, unfortunately, I have the equivalent of 17 PhDs in hate speech after Gamergate. So I'm unfortunately very familiar with Facebook and the efficacy of these exact policies that they're claiming to delineate. I wish I had nicer things to say. I don't. What they're saying on hate speech there is not true. It's not true this week from events I've personally seen. You can go on Facebook. You can out transgender women. You can go after Black people in really personal ways, and they're not going to do anything. So that may be their policy, but the actual enforcement arm of that is non-existent. Reddit, Ben, you cover Reddit quite a bit. Their hate speech policies are even worse. Google is actively still having this issue of ranking because people love to click on dirt, and it just rises to the top while valid sources of news go down. So Facebook can put out a piece of paper claiming what their policies are. It doesn't mean it's the outcome.
And this is the first time that they are actually making public the guidelines with which their community group polices all of these flagged items. And what was fascinating to me in this is they say there are 10,000 actual humans that are doing the work of policing these posts that violate their community guidelines. I had no idea there were that many people working on this, and that seems shocking to me given how ineffective, as you say, Brianna, most people think the policing is.
Yeah.
I think
really
community safety is one of the most understaffed areas of tech companies. Like community safety, your average tech company employs a very small number of these types of people who do this kind of work that is really important. And especially at the large tech company level, at Google, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Telegram, any of these companies, or Reddit, any of these companies that deal in communication and can be considered social media at some level, employ probably too few people when it comes to community safety. And when you think about the fact that there's how many billion people on Facebook now, 10,000 people doing that work and doing it in shifts, is a drop in the bucket. And what's interesting is like a lot of the founders of these companies think that it's a tech issue that they can solve. And it's actually not. It's a human issue, and it's a human staffing issue, in my opinion. I don't think you can build an AI that protects people from, harassment and a lot of the really bad stuff that happens on these platforms. You actually have to have human beings making those choices, and that's a big part of this too. Is like I think these tech companies think it's a tech issue and that they're figuring it out, and they can figure it out. But you have to actually hire humans to do this work.
I want to get back to that specifically with the false news aspect with Facebook. But one other development that came out this week around exactly what you're talking about, Ben, is YouTube released its community standards. And they had a point around artificial intelligence and how much they're using it. Listen to this. They say, we removed over 8 million videos from YouTube during the last 12 months, or I'm not sure if it's 12 months, but when they instituted this new AI, the majority of these 8 million videos were mostly spam or people attempting to upload adult content. 6.7 million of those were first flagged for review by machines rather than humans. Of those 6.7 million videos, 76% were removed before they received a single view. So when your video is processing, that's what's going on. I had no idea that was the element of processing. I thought they were just like transcoding it or something. And they probably are, but also doing AI review on the content. But that's a pretty amazing number. 76% of the videos were removed before they received a single view because they violated those community standards. So I do see a case for both AI and human intervention and community flagging, but it's just so nascent. I mean, to your point, Ben, it's like we got to have real humans in there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I think can happen in concert, right? And these systems that these companies build are like kind of incredible in terms of how they identify things that might be problematic. I remember like one of my favorite stories from, I don't know, it must have been like 4 years ago now, was Google's ad fraud tool. This was even before Google got booted from China. Was picking up all of these like weird photos that were from users that ended up stealing cars. So it was almost like a weird AI precog thing where this AI that they built to crack down on ad fraud was identifying car theft before it happened. So there is like some amazing stuff that happens with, and AI is obviously a simplistic way of describing this, but machine learning algorithms that are doing this work to flag some of this stuff. But it absolutely has to be, it is nascent, and it absolutely has to involve humans at a certain level. And I think tech companies are starting to learn that slowly but surely.
Yeah, the computers are great with copyright, images or songs that are copyright, so they're great at protecting that, but they're not great at dealing with hate speech because you have to be able to go through and actually listen to it. And I think that really what Facebook and YouTube, what all of these companies are doing is pretty much saying, listen, we can regulate ourselves, please don't regulate us. And so they're doing the minimal amount possible to try to put people at ease that we're actually going to take care of this problem. It's not really a problem. It's going to go away. But they're not really taking care of people, and computers don't do a great job of that.
Now, I want to go back to the fake news issue, too, because this really bugs me as a journalist, which is we're gonna downrank the fake news, but we're not going to get rid of it. So what is it? Is it, you're either all in or you're all out, in my opinion, on this. You're either completely uncensored or you're doing something about it. And so it just bothers me because I feel like they do have a moral responsibility to have some journalistic ethics in here around what's being propagated. Agree or disagree? Is that just too slippery a slope?
I think I'm a former journalist personally, and I'm very sympathetic to the argument there, but I actually think this is a kind of perfect compromise. For me, I've had a lot of talk with Google, and this is before I was running for office. Like when you become a public figure, I realize you're in a different category, but just Brianna Wu, the citizen, back in 2016 was having a lot of talks with Google about how you'd have people that would basically use SEO to manipulate certain stories that didn't come from credible sources to go very high in my Google results. My argument with them is let's rank the New York Times, let's rank Wall Street Journal, let's rank the Boston Globe higher. I don't want this to be banished from the search results. Let's just put stuff that's credible higher up. To me, I think if you got Facebook into the daily business of saying, okay, this thing that they said from Red State or, Think Progress isn't quite true, so we're just going to delete that. That is a slog that I just don't think Facebook can win. But if you're downranking things from these, spam pages, like, the 99% would be a left-wing one on Facebook or, some of the more extreme right-wing ones, I think that has value. So I actually think this is a really good compromise.
But isn't the analog for that taking an untrue statement or article and putting it on the back page of the newspaper? It's still in the newspaper.
But what happens about what is fake news, right?
Yeah.
Like how do we actually say what's fake. And I think that becomes really difficult because, I tell a story that's my story, and then the government says, well, that's not true. And now my story doesn't get to go out there. And so, though I don't like to hear stories that are being propagated because of them being extreme, and I think that extremism really does lead to us being on two different sides and fighting a battle that we need to fight together. But if you just get rid of it, who chooses what is fake and by what standards? I think that one is it would take a momentous amount of information. And I think that, areas that maybe you could overall scope of dealing with things that are hateful or that are trying to, cause extremism, you could take a look at. But it just becomes a really difficult piece of what is fake and what is not fake. And what if a site that brings out a lot of fake news then gives a story that's true? Then you're kind of giving a blanket statement for all of them.
But in that
I'm
instance,
with Georgia and Brianna. I'm also, I agree with both of them. Like, I think that I just think this type of thing can go south in a really bad way in some dystopian future if we're not careful. So it's tough because you definitely want users to understand the content that they're seeing and understand the quality of it. But I think once you start basically erasing things or deep sixing them so far that they get erased, as a tech company, I think that's becomes problematic really quickly when it comes to fake news, at least, and deciding what can and can't exist on the platform.
I see the merits of this in terms of a first,
like you'd have to have people, right, Becky, to be able to do that. So then a story would be put on hold while a human actually vets its truth, and then we're waiting for that. And the chat room, by the way, fully supports you, Becky. They're going wild saying, fake is so easy, Georgia. What color is your hair? Is it blonde? Yes or no? This would be easy to do, but you would have to have a human do that.
Well, I guess that's why I'm so adamant about this, is because that's what I have to do every day in my job. Right. I mean, when you work for a big I work for a network that's held accountable to this, where people lose their jobs if they don't get it 100% right, or if we include stuff that's so fringe that it's not a good representation of the truth. So I feel like this is the business that I'm in, and we have this incredible overarching standards and legal department that oversees everything we do. And I feel so much constraint to get it right in this instance that it chaps me that Facebook doesn't have that same constraint.
Ethics.
Now, that being said, if I put something on my own Facebook page and I went back and Facebook had deleted it, I'd say I'd be infinitely more chapped. So this is a tough one. I can see
it's a tough one, but I do. It would be wonderful if everything that went out onto the internet were things that were true or fact-based. But then people's opinions I think it becomes so muddy. It's not that easy. I think that some things are easier than others to deal with.
At some point, we as a society are going to have to wrestle with the fact that it's not necessarily good for everyone in America to be reading different sources of news all the time. It just plays really hard into confirmation bias. As bad as I remember like network television being 20 years ago, it's just that much worse now. And for me, even as I'm conducting a political campaign, it disturbs me that when I put ads out on Facebook and Twitter and Google AdSense, there's nothing there checking anything I'm doing, seeing if it's true, holding me accountable, or even telling people who's sending the ad. We do that because we want to go the extra mile and hold ourselves to high standards. But it does bother me. At some point, we as a society are going to have to really think about this issue. Personally, if I were in charge of Facebook, I think they should alter the ratio a bit and make the American public eat their vegetables a little bit more and rank the New York Times and the Washington Post and like real sources of news higher, because we need to be reading about things that aren't cat and dog pictures. We need to be reading about the USDA regulation. We need to be reading about what's going on with Wall Street deregulation. These are things that we need to be thinking about, and we just don't anymore in the Facebook era.
As you're talking about something interesting that just popped into my head, at least I think it's interesting, is that I I read the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal every day, and I pay for both. And I do it so that I can hear both sides in a measured way. And I think it's really important for me to read the Wall Street Journal in that respect. And the fact that it's behind a paywall is actually a problem because it's one of the most moderate, conservative-leaning journalistic sources. And the paywall is preventing people from reading moderate, leaning a little bit right journalism. And that just suddenly it dawned on me that, wow, that's a problem.
There is, if you are, God, how do I say this? When you are in circles of political power talking to people about things, you kind of have to be the kind of person that reads the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. It's kind of an unconscious level, like language of power. And what I think we've moved to is that informing yourself is something only the very richest Americans can do, right? Yeah. Like there's a certain amount of privilege for me subscribing to New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe. I don't think that's good. And I think at some point we're going to have to wrestle with the fact that the new media ad model is not sustainable. Subscriptions and community supported media really seems to be the only supportable, model for media funding itself.
Well, we are going to take a break right now, but we're going to come back and talk about a story that was broken by my local newspaper, the East Bay Times. So I'm very excited to give them a plug. When I started in journalism, I had to decide if I was going to be a general assignment reporter, which means you cover everything and a lot of crime, or a niche reporter like business and tech. And I went on a couple of big general assignment stories, one of which was a crime story. And I ended up such an emotional wreck for days that I became a tech reporter because I couldn't handle the crime stories. But we are going to come back and talk about an absolutely fascinating intersection of crime, technology, and ethics. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Excuse me, pardon me, it's Leo. I'm just horning in here because I want to tell you about something I've used for so long. I'm kind of the expert on it around here. Stamps.com. They've been advertising with us. I think it's been a decade. We've been using it for a decade. Stamps.com. In fact, I remember I first got acquainted with Stamps.com because they have this thing where you could print stamps with your picture on it. And I thought, oh, that's kind of fun. So I was sending out fan mail with my picture stamp on it. But then I found out about all the services they offer. I love Stamps.com. It basically gives you all the amazing services of the post office right at your desk. You never have to get up from your desk. Anytime you need it, whenever it's convenient, you can buy and print official U.S. postage for any package, any letter, any class of mail. You don't need any special ink. You don't need a postage meter. You just need your computer, your printer. That's it. And the mail carrier will come and get it. So you probably don't even have to get up from your desk at all. I would recommend getting up from your desk once in a while, but you don't have to do it for this. Create your Stamps account in minutes. It's all online. You don't need any equipment, nothing to lease, no long-term commitments. They do have a pretty good offer, though, which includes a digital scale, which I love. It's a USB scale. You plug it in and it automatically figures out the right postage and then feeds it into Stamps.com. So, that couldn't be better. You don't have to, never again will you put extra stamps in a package just to make sure it's not postage due. They even help you decide if there's a more affordable class of mail. You could be sending this media mails, things like that. Click, print, mail, and you're done. It could not be easier, could not be more affordable. I am a huge fan. I love Stamps.com. Right now, you too can enjoy the Stamps.com service. They've got a very nice special offer. If you just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone right at the top there in the upper right, and then when it asks you for the offer code, TWIT, if you will, that gives you up to $55 free postage, the digital scale, a 4-week trial. Stamps.com, click the mic right up on the upper right there, enter TWIT. Stamps.com. Really, if you're not using Stamps.com, you're missing the boat. You got to try it. Now on with the show.
Thank you, Leo. Quick correction. Thank God for the chat room. KDKA is the station. It's a CBS station in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with a K, and that is not west of the Mississippi. I just couldn't have handled the feedback if that had come back.
Is it Mason-Dixon instead? What's the line, I wonder?
I don't know.
What's the actual line?
It's primarily west of the Mississippi, but it looks like there are some exceptions. So, I'm going to have to go do some research on this.
Fake news, Beck. Fake news.
Fake news, gang. Fake news.
Been downgraded.
Okay, so this was one of the most interesting stories of the week to me. We had the arrest of the Golden State Killer, serial killer from the 70s, 80s, and up into the 90s here in California. And the break in the case came when a detective who was assigned to the case, he was a cold case expert, decided to use some of the DNA from one of the crime scenes and created a fake account at a online DNA site called GED Match. It's an open source DNA website, and it looks to me like it's primarily used to find relatives for people who've been adopted, or in some cases, people who want to find long-lost relatives. And you upload your DNA. They have a full disclosure that it's open source, that other people are going to be matching against you, and they can't control how your DNA is used and what results come back. And from this came a narrowing of the pool of potential families that the DNA from the crime scene matched. With that, instead of having millions of people to try and cross-reference, it ended up being that the detectives were able to narrow it down to a few family groups and just a few thousand people, and that's how they found the killer. They ended up narrowing it down to one suspect in that familial group whose profile matched, and then they picked up discarded DNA, which sounds to me like they went through his trash and ran DNA tests to see if there was a match. There was. And this was the person who was arrested and has been charged as the killer. So, open source DNA database.
Best
what kind
Black
of problems
Mirror episode ending ever.
Ending on a happy note.
That's right.
Lots of ethical questions here. It appears that this is legal. Given that people have willingly uploaded their DNA and that the match came from a third or fourth cousin of the man who was arrested. Thoughts? You're opening up a can of worms when you do this, but and to be clear, this wasn't 23andMe or any of the other big sites who say they only respond to police warrants or subpoenas to have access to things like this. This was an open source database.
And the reason that people do this is because, so if you are on, say Ancestry, it wasn't that, but let's say you're on Ancestry, you will only be, marked by other people that have gone on Ancestry. So by putting it online to an open source, all of the other people from other DNA sites can check to see what your genealogy may be. So you end up with a bigger set of data. So it's for people that are interested in finding out their genealogy, that's a good idea for them. But the problem is that, you're not just giving up your data to a company that has a privacy policy. Who knows if they're actually enforcing that, but you're now letting anyone be able to access your information.
Yeah, there's a pattern throughout history where we discover new technology and then we find out what the consequences of it are. And like with this, it's very mixed. Personally, for me, I'm adopted, and eventually one of these days I'm going to go get in touch with my birth mom. I'm going to meet her. I turned 40 this year. There's probably not a lot of time left to do that. But here you have something that very clearly could be used for a lot of really dark purposes, like not just overreach of law enforcement, not just the idea of open sourcing your DNA. I think you'd have to be really careless to agree to that. It really speaks to the need for a regulatory environment with people that understand these issues and are willing to educate themselves on it. It's both scary and good. I
totally agree with that on the regulatory part of this. I mean, I think this is strangely connected for me, at least, to the Cambridge Analytica conversation, which is we're talking about personal data and how it gets used, right? And we're also talking about this idea, at least in this case, that like once you put your information out on the internet, it doesn't go away. And this has been there have been like all sorts of problems with this at the state level. People getting things on their record as a minor and having that data be collected by the state, that information be sold by the state as part of a larger data package to a data broker company. And then when they become an adult, their record at the state level gets expunged, but this data that the state has now sold to another company is still floating around. And so I think I know this. Maybe this all sounds a little like weird and vague, but I do really think that we need regulation at this when it comes to your personal data. And the FTC, I think, is at least in my mind the best place to start to think about that. But users, and eventually this will happen anyway. I think users just need to be super informed about the kind of data that they put out as an internet user, and I think that they need to be in more control of it. And I think that government is basically the intermediary to make that happen and to regulate, so that people can be more in control of their information. Obviously, this was a good story for solving the crime potentially. And it's, there are a lot of good things about this particular headline in the news, but I do think it connects to this larger issue of like data ownership and government regulation that helps individual users get that data ownership.
I think there might be another area as well that we need to increase media literacy and the ideas of privacy policies. And I think that it should be taught to children in school, because we've all seen we're all in the tech industry and we all try to get information out. Yet, Becky and I both know people that have no clue about what Facebook was dealing with and why and how that's important. And I think that it starts with the same thing even with fake news. If we taught kids at a young age what is media literacy, what are hook lines, what are people trying to deal with our emotions, what are we signing up for, what are privacy and EULAs, what do they mean, what should we look out for, then we have something to go against, because we have an educated group of people to be able to deal with this, and technology is no longer so scary. They also know what their rights are. But just getting out the media out there without having it put in place as education, I don't think that that's going to work. At least it hasn't so far.
What do you guys think about the issue of this when you come back to the crime issue and law enforcement reaching out to these companies like 23andMe that source your Helix or any of the others that take a look at your DNA and sequence it? And, is that an overreach issue? Where do we draw the line? How much of this is just modern science and technology biting people in the butt? The chat room's asking, why is this an issue for this particular criminal? And the issue is he didn't upload his data. His third cousin uploaded his DNA data, and that's how he got caught. He had no idea. It is an analog to the Facebook thing. It's not that you did the quiz. It's that your buddy did the quiz. So, the issue of overreach on this when it comes to DNA, I think is the fear people have always had about, if you got your tinfoil hat on and you're getting your fillings out, this story confirms everything for you.
Well, I want to say I don't think it's tinfoil to be concerned about this at all. I mean, we have seen a lot of stories in America this year and last year about how Black people are treated by police. I think it is true that you can see law enforcement overreach here. So I think for us, the question is, where does the Fourth Amendment apply here? Is a judge involved? Is there probable cause? And what I think is really fantastic here is I have no doubt that as this case is being adjudicated, you're going to have a defense lawyer that's going to argue all of these points that we're mentioning right here. It will go to appeal. I have no doubt it will go to an appellate court, and we will start to form jurisprudence around this issue, like a legal framework for us to be discussing it. So I think that is going to happen, and that's good. I think that Congress really has a role to play. Ben, I want to disagree with you. I don't think the FTC is the place to do this. I think it's really more the role of the technology subcommittee to do this, particularly with records, because you have a lot of control over the way formats are used by that subcommittee. And I just think it would be a more direct way to address it.
Also,
hey, as long as
CR1
somebody
in the.
does it, I'm happy.
Say that again, Ben?
I said, as long as somebody freaking does it, I'm happy.
CR1 in the chat rooms also adds, note to self, remember not to take a Facebook quiz titled, Am I a Serial Killer? So that's that's the combining of the two things.
It's good. It's good.
No, you probably already know.
Right. I mean, you might. This is one aspect of the story that is kind of, the horse has already left the barn. There are 900,000 DNA files on this GED match database. So almost 1 million DNA records have already been uploaded. If you think about the relatives of those 1 million people, it's out there. And the web that creates is already in the public domain. So, this is already long established as being now a tool. You're going to see cold case experts from around the country creating these fake accounts and going in and trying to figure out how to narrow down their suspects. How does this differ? I was thinking about it. People are saying, oh, this violates people's rights. They've been exposed. How does this differ from saying, looking for clues in a public space? You're looking at every human. Those people didn't ask to be looked at, but you're looking. There is an aspect of, hey, this is just good policing, right?
Yeah, people put it out there. It's open. It was open sourced. The people put it out there, and then the police use that information. I don't really think that we really have that right to privacy once we've put something out there, and maybe in the future we'll need to, because the reach is going to be so far. Very little privacy will really exist anymore. But I don't really have an issue with it on that part.
Yeah. No, there's probable cause here to go look at this person's history. There's probable cause to go through his trash and get his DNA. I don't see anything here that's problematic at all.
All right. Technology solving crime. We will not be discussing crime or really much more serious stuff when we come back. We're going to talk about new Snap spectacles. We're going to talk about the Nintendo Labo. We're going to talk about technology that truly makes you happy. So stick around.
If I may interrupt just briefly to talk about something I've been using for some time, and I'm so excited that they're a sponsor. It's called Aptiv. AAPTIV. Aptiv is an app. It's actually, if you look at my smartphone, it's right on the front page of my app. My phone right here, because I use it all the time. It's an app. It's an audio-based trainer. Audio-based workouts created by certified personal trainers in the mobile app in all kinds of categories. Outdoor running, treadmill, elliptical. If you do elliptical workouts, they're great for you, but you probably have the experience of boredom, right? Because it's the same. If you get Jessica Munster in your ear doing some hip-hop music while you're on the elliptical, doing intervals, you're going to work out so much harder and so much better.
What's up? All right.
I love Jessica, by the way. She's one of my favorite trainers. You'll get favorites. There are 25... Actually, let me pause you. Sorry.
It's Jessica.
She's in your ear. I actually went out and I got those great headphones that I've been talking about. That a seal in the ear. They're for workouts from Jabra. Perfect for this. They work with AirPods. They work with wired headphones. Look at 30 minutes front, 30 minutes back. This is just elliptical. Jamie McFadden, Kelly Chase. There are 30 new classes every week. They have really excellent trainers. Indoor cycling, rowing, stair climber. I love the workouts where you could filter them by duration. So you can go from like a little short one to a longer one. You choose the trainers that you like, and you could just narrow them down. You could choose the genre of music you like. The music's great, by the way. The music's great. Here's a full-body strength training workout, 13 minutes. Akeem's on that one. Saved by the kettlebell. I love that. This is so cool. So they have, I have one that's a medicine ball workout that I use all the time. I love it. Strength training. You can do just body weight. Stretching. How often do you stretch? They will walk, and this is nice because they walk you through the training, which is fantastic. Workouts for weight loss, ab workouts. I can go on and on. You could do a full program with them too. Run a mile with Jamie. Touch your toes in 20 days. I could use that one. Increase mobility and flexibility for all range of athletes. It's like having a personal trainer in your pocket. They even have yoga and meditation. So a maternity program, this is so great. Find a workout you love every time. Never repeat if you don't want to, but if you've got a trainer you like, you can have her on, every day. Or it's got a great supportive community of active members of all levels. They're reaching their fitness goals along with you. I love Aptive. Subscriptions start at $14.99 billed monthly. I just went ahead and got the annual membership for $100. That's less than 2 training sessions. And by the way, these are the best trainers in the country. They're awesome. They're really fun. Oh, look how you want high intensity? You want technical? Working on form and stuff like that? Fun and supportive? I want the fun and supportive trainers. Maybe that's why I like Jen so much. And the community is great. It'll keep you working, keep you exercising. It is really, really fun. AAPTIV.com/twit. And you can even get some guest passes to share them with your friends too. Aptive or family, Maybe you've got family members who you think maybe you ought to be doing a little bit of Aptive. What's my fitness goal? Get healthy? Yeah. I'm a pretty regular exerciser. I want to do these, by the way. Look where you could choose, at the gym, at home, or outside. Take this to the gym. You don't need to pay a trainer to work at the gym. You can take these to the gym. AAPTIV.com/twit. I tell you what, I want you to do this. This is so good for you, and I like it so much. We got a deal for you. As I said, $100 for an annual membership. We'll give you 30% off right now. How about $70 for a whole year of unlimited workouts? That's like an hour of training time, but you get it all year long. AAPTIV.com/twit for 30% off new annual memberships. I am so high on this. I'm really glad. We actually, I've been using this. I talked about it on iOS today, right? I got Megan doing it. She's doing it too. And then they said, hey, maybe we should do advertisements. Aptive. Yes, you should. Aptive.com/twit for 30% off right now. Now we go back to the sedentary lifestyle of This Week in Tech. Sorry, guys.
Sedentary? Moi?
Yeah. We've
not.
been working it. We've been working
I work out.
We're going to turn this into an exercise video in about 2 shakes, so just you wait. But first, Leo has been on vacation and doesn't realize what an active week it has been on the Twit. So take a look at this last week in tech.
Previously on Twit.
When we were kind of getting set up to start the show, I went to sit down on this chair and I almost sat on a turtle.
Yes.
And normally that's not weird.
This is a turtle that if you ask Google's Inception v3 network, it will say with really high confidence that this is actually a rifle.
Security Now.
The Microsoft Research Group are able to do good things. What they have done with Azure Sphere is design a complete front-to-back, soup-to-nuts, open, free ecosystem for securing IoT devices.
The new screensavers.
Everyone is doing it except for Apple. We're going to touch base with an MIT student who has figured out how to turn a MacBook Pro into a touchscreen Mac with a little device that costs $1.
So Apple, next MacBook comes out with a touchscreen. Is life over? What's the deal?
I think I'm out of $1.
Oh, no.
Twit. Bring your brain. We'll do the rest.
All I know is that if Mary Jo could play Call of Duty in 4K and HDR, then she would become a gamer.
My life would be guaranteed. Changed.
I do feel like Mary Jo could answer the Call of Duty.
Yeah.
We are answering the call of duty right here. This is This Week in Tech. I'm Becky Worley, and I am mastering the segue here. We've hit so many serious topics all show long that we really need to just lighten this situation up right now and slag off on some company. So I've chosen Snapchat. They released their next generation of spectacles this last week. Wearable camera in the fabulous goggles. They cost $150, $20 more than the previous model, and I think they are so incredibly stupid. So please talk me out of that belief.
No, you're right.
Am I wrong?
You're dead on. You're right.
I'm with you.
Never doubt yourself.
Oh, yeah. Ben, you've got him. Oh, no, Ben is wearing these spectacles right now, and it's an idyllic, kawaii selfie pose. Cute.
Becky, wouldn't you run? Wouldn't you guys run if you saw someone with these spectacles coming up to you? Wouldn't you run away?
A grown man like Ben, possibly, yes.
Oh, God.
Hey, come on.
It's like you're an 8-year-old from the 1980s wearing those. Like, what? Oh my God.
Give me the play devil's advocate here, Ben. Come on, lay it out there.
I haven't taken them out of the closet in months, I will admit, but mostly because they're really hard to charge and they didn't connect very well to my phone. So like I got them for reporting. I just went out and bought them to report on it when the first set of spectacles came out. And I have to say, like, the technology, it just didn't work that well. I mean, they didn't connect with my phone very well. The connectivity was bad. And but the videos I loved. Like, it was really nice. I wore them skiing once, and that was really fun. I admit that they have that Google Glass thing going on where they have like the potential creep factor happening. Mm-hmm. They are very clear about sort of showing when they're recording, and you have to hit the button, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, I think it was kind of a flop. So I'm surprised that they're putting out another version. And these were expensive as heck. So I don't understand how they're going to reach a better crowd with a more expensive pair. That seems crazy.
It was a flop. They sold about 150,000 pairs, but they took a $40 million write-down on the whole thing because there were that many more that they didn't sell. So I don't get it. I mean, I actually like the GoPro use case that you just set up, but Brianna, do you see any use for this?
So, I knew something was really wrong with Snapchat spectacles when I ordered a pair, and I wrote them back and I go, yeah, you gave me the wrong color. And then they just mailed me 2 extra versions of it. Like, here you go. I don't care. Take it off our hands. It's fine. Ben, one of the things, I agree with you, the video function of it wasn't that great. But what's amazing to me is this Generation 2 that they're putting out. They don't fix any of the fundamental problems with the product. I don't see anything there about connectivity. I don't see a serious plan to up the image quality. I don't see a serious plan to up the amount that you're recording. And the biggest thing, I'm like, okay, for Gen 1, it can look like you got it at Wendy's in the 1980s. That's fine. But Gen 2, they'll come back and they'll bring some good styles or at least some alternate styles. And no, they're like, we're just going to make it thinner. And what a way to not learn anything from losing $50 million. That is impressive.
Isn't this like these glasses to me are symbolic of everything that's wrong with our society? They're creepy. They don't work well. I would really, if someone was wearing those and I went to a party, I think that like it's a cute idea to be able to go skiing. Ben, to go skiing. And
I'll just wear them. I'll keep wearing them for you guys.
Right.
I like it.
You can just talk about how they suck, and I'll keep wearing them.
The funniest thing is I'm talking about it being creepy as I'm, doing this podcast on camera, but I've chosen to. I put makeup on and straightened my hair. It's different if I'm just chilling out at the park and someone comes up with these glasses, or for my children is walking down the road and someone's wearing these glasses. This would really irk me. I would be irked.
Have you ever seen them in the wild, though? I have never.
That is a good point, Becky.
Nope.
That's a good point.
Never. At least Google Glass, I saw it like South by Southwest every once in a while. But
I did, but that's because we hang out in tech circles, right?
But these aren't even cool to text. I mean, I even know 14-year-old girls, and I haven't seen them. You know, I mean, I coach soccer. I've never seen them there. I mean, it's just not happening. Right. The one thing that they got wrong is that they're made for the narcissism generation, but you can't take a picture of yourself. Maybe that's why they flopped so badly.
If they had they had a mirror that projected back, these would probably be huge hits. You've solved their problem. I hope they send you a big check, Becky.
Right. I nailed it.
Yeah,
more hardware news. There you go, backwards, Ben. That's genius. You
need to stick them on your hat with duct tape.
More hardware news here. Apple reportedly, this is all rumors, working on a wireless headset for both AR and VR. Do we think that this is going to be the revolutionary Apple jumps into the game and now it's really going to happen? Or is this one of those Apple late to the party and nobody's going to really care except for when they come out and then it'll fade away?
No offense to Georgia, but if the HomePod is any indication...
Oh my goodness! You know, this is one of my expertise in the game industry is graphical subsystems. So something that doesn't get talked about enough is Apple's very weak APIs with 3D technology. So they've been shoring those up lately. So I saw this story come out, and I can kind of see where they're going with it, but I agree with Adi Robertson's view on The Verge that she expressed with this, that if this is what Apple's putting out, it's not really ambitious enough. Like VR pass-through with AR, basically having a camera on the outside to take a picture of what's outside and putting it like in front of you. There's like a lag no matter what you do. It's low res, it's weird, it's bad, it's terrible. I think from the product they're describing, it's not going to work for two reasons. It's not ambitious enough, and they don't have the developer ecosystem to really, put out 3D stuff. If they're holding off and it is smaller and thinner and lighter and doesn't look like Snapchat spectacles, I could see it working. But I think it's always I think you're generally unwise to count out Apple.
We are going to have a little bit of a technology roundtable here as we talk about. This is the plan is technology that makes you happy. That's the next little subject. But before we do, John just brought me a pair of the Snapchat spectacles. So what I think we should do, Ben, is I'll take a picture of you if you'll take a picture of me, and then we will fully complete this channel of Snapchat narcissism right here.
Then we'll disappear into the Matrix.
Okay, good. We got this. Done.
No, but I can't. See, I can't. This is the problem. It's not. They're not charged because I haven't.
See?
I haven't touched them in months.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Dead tech. So, Georgia, I'm going to start with you since you are a therapist. And I have been telling people lately as we talk about Facebook and Facebook fatigue and social media fatigue and all the other things that we're asking ourselves about. Are we using our phones too much? Does gaming make you happy? I ask people to hold a device, not unlike, do you remember that book about the magic of tidying up, the Japanese book about the magic of tidying up.
Does it give you joy?
Yes. She says, hold the object that you're thinking about getting rid of, and does it bring you joy? And so I now ask people if they say, do you think I should quit Facebook? I say, use Facebook for a few minutes, do what you would normally do, and then hold your phone and ask yourself, did that just bring me joy? Or does it just make me mad, or did it make me feel compulsive or whatever? So what is your advice to people about technology and happiness and determining what makes you happy and what you're being reactive to?
Yeah, I think that less is usually more. And I always say, think of yourself at 80. Are you going to look back on your life and say, I wish I spent more time on Facebook, or I wish I spent more time on social media, or would it be doing something with your family? Now, that being said, there are some tech devices that I can look back on and say, yeah, this brings me joy.
Okay, examples.
Difficult. Okay, so I have two, and they are really, truly and literally the opposite ends of the spectrum. So one, and I'll go with Bree on this one, is my VR headset. I love the HTC Vive and Oculus. I love it. Playing Skyrim. It's amazing. And we have it hooked up to the ceiling for the wires. I'll talk to you about it later, Bree. It's amazing. And so I love that. And it's fun and exciting. And then the other one is my heated seated toilet seat. And I know, but really toilets haven't changed in 120 years. And having a heated toilet seat, and it has a bidet option, it has an air dryer, a deodorizer.
Oh, you have the Toto.
I have the Toto. Yeah. It has a control, so you can actually have your own personal settings as you want. All kinds of amazing features. It just doesn't flush, which I would be sad. If it flushed, it would be completely done for me. But it's amazing, and I would never live without it. I almost I go to somewhere else or someone else's house, and I sit on the cold seat, and then I'm shocked, and I slam the toilet seat down, and I'm like, where's enough toilet paper? And it's sadness. So
this is a perk at Google. They have the warmed seats on the toilets at Google in the office, in the campus.
Once you do use that, you can't go back. I'm sorry, a warm Tushie. I live in Canada. It's freezing cold here. You get up in the middle of the night, and to have a little light that lights your way so that you're not going to miss. It also lets you not fall into the toilet seat for women, right? It's a chance it could happen. Yeah. So you don't fall into the toilet seat because and then it just takes care of everything. Air dry. You're just good to go after.
Virtual reality and warm Tushie tech. I got it. Okay. All right. Wow. Brianna, what do you think is on your list of tech that makes you truly happy?
I'm going to wrap Georgia out before I answer this and say she loves VR so much. She actually bought a new house to have more VR, to have more room for VR. That's cut to Georgia. She's completely guilty. See that look on her face? That's the look of a guilty woman. So, yes. Right. Technology brings me joy. We're going to talk about it later. I love Nintendo Labo. It is joy in a box. It is fun to put together. I'm going to hold this up right here.
Can you give us the big picture? What is this and why is it different?
Okay. So this is Nintendo Labo. Basically, what they did is they got a bunch of engineers to make toys that you could build out of cardboard. So the variety pack is $60, $70, $80, something like that. And it comes with a bunch of different toys that you can build. One's a remote control car. You've got a fishing rod. Those remote control cars, they's awesome. That sumo wrestling those two cars and trying to get them out of a thing is amazing. So awesome. Frank and I are already over competing with that.
Well, those look like hex bugs.
It does. But it's really it's so much joy to put together because it's hard to explain. It's like the joy of building something and the joy of figuring out how all these parts work together. I just absolutely love it. I'm sorry, I'm probably the only person here that's super into cars, but it is summer finally here in Boston, or at least not 10 degrees. So I'm out there. I'm driving my motorcycle, my Porsche on back roads at night. I'm just having an absolute blast out there at this time of year.
With airbags.
With airbags. So Georgia knew me when we did our last show together. I had an Audi TT that I rebuilt from scratch. It was a 2001. I bought it for $5,000. I put another $10,000 into it, fixing it. I finally gave up and got a Porsche, and now I have a Porsche 718 GTS, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, it just so much of my job is talking to people and being online that at the end of a long day, it makes me feel so good to go out in my car and hit the twisties and just be there with the road. It makes me feel amazing.
But Bree doesn't drive really fast. She drives really slowly and always the speed limit.
Always.
Very slowly.
Aspiring politicians always do.
Oh,
I like the synthesis of real world and technology here, and I thank you Beatbox in the chat room for reminding me that on the new screensavers, Karsten, our producer's kids, were demonstrating the Labo also, and it seems like a really neat tool for kids who are into engineering and want to bring that together in the real world. Yeah. Super cute. He had this one game where he's wearing a cardboard backpack and he had the controllers in his hands, and then the car that was being simulated in the game turned into a transformer as he stood up. And it was just, you could see it was truly an interactive experience because he was moving his body and people were able to watch the game that he was playing. So, this is where I see the benefit of these kind of real world gaming environments coming together. Ben, besides your spectacles that you wear out at all moments, what brings you joy from technology?
Oh, man. I guess I would have two things. One, I don't know if you've heard them. We haven't had a BBC moment yet, but I also have twins, Becky.
And
how
they
old?
Wow.
They're about to be a year.
Oh, my God. And we got you to do this? Wow.
You could have been sleeping.
Yeah, they're doing great.
Holy smokes.
And my wife Sarah is like amazing. So everybody's doing great. But they have these like bouncy chairs, and I'm forgetting the name of the company that makes them, but just these chairs where you're like, they're starting to crawl now and walk and pull themselves up on things, not walking yet, but pulling themselves up on things and putting like every electronic cord in their mouth. And like, we finally reached the point where like you literally can't do anything when they are like out and about. You used to be able to kind of like cook some food while they were rolling around or whatever, and now you just can't do that. So those bouncy chairs, I'm forgetting the name of the company that made them, but they're just sort of like kind of semi upright, and you can slip the babies.
I know which ones you mean.
Yes.
They're just like such lifesavers. So that's one piece of tech that has like saved my life, and I also really like the PSVR. I'm not as cool as Georgia. I don't have the HTC or the Oculus or anything like that, and I don't have yet the wires from my ceiling. That's an amazing idea.
You buy the set. I'll put the link in. You buy the set. It's like pulleys system.
Nice.
For the ceiling.
Nice.
Everything changes.
But
Georgia,
I
you've
love
got
that
a problem,
virtual
girl.
reality system. It's like so good to be able to. I have friends who play, and like friends who I don't actually spend time with anymore IRL, unfortunately, because they're really far away. And they have PSVR, and so we get to hang out and play Skyrim together and do other stuff together in these virtual environments. And I think that is actually in some ways the killer app for VR, is like being able to spend time with friends and relatives in a virtual space together is to me like the best kind of thing that you can imagine VR doing. And I guess that's sort of stating the obvious, but that is something that has been really wonderful for me as a new dad, is like being able to basically hang out with some of my friends who I don't see anymore because I moved out of the city because twins. #.
Because twins. It's not VR, but I was shooting a story with an old friend of mine the other day, and his son is 13, and he said that his son's main way of communicating with his friends is over headset in Fortnite. And
wow,
I just thought that was so interesting. I hadn't thought about boys. We've talked about girls and all their social elements and their texting and all the ways that social media is so important to them, but boys really communicating through gaming. What a concept. I hadn't thought about it, and you're validating that thought as you talk about it.
Yeah, it is really positive to be able to do that, it's a different. Yeah, I mean, some of my most serious conversations about what's going on in my life are literally happening probably while me and my buddy are getting our butts kicked by that 13-year-old in Fortnite. So,
the other thing you mentioned that brought me right back is that when your kids are little, whether it's a singleton or twins or whatever, you will buy any product that you think will get you time. You're like, oh my God, if I can just get 5 minutes from this toy, it's worth the $20 because they'll play with it for 5 minutes. God, you buy so much stuff.
I might be able to shave the second leg.
So true.
It's a great conversation. I think it's so worth people, anybody who's watching this podcast is a technology fan, but we kind of fall into patterns of using, I find this with gaming sometimes, that I use gaming as a release, but then at the end of it, I'm not really happier. And so I think it's a great act of just being mindful in your life as technology fans to ask what really brings me joy and what maybe I'm just doing because it's a way of zoning out, but it's not actually making my life better. To your point, Georgia, about like when I'm 80, will I look back on this time and say, yeah, that was awesome?
No,
I gotta
so
say,
good,
I'm gonna look
Becky. I'm
back on the
stealing
time and the miles of games I've beaten, like Far Cry 5. I don't regret all the helicopters I blew up. I don't regret any of the bears I went and hunted. I will never regret all the Final Fantasies I've beaten. I don't know. We gotta get you some new games, Becky.
Well, I also think I think that's a really great point because I do a lot of talks for parents about technology boundaries and things like that, and I was recounting that I gamed a lot as a kid and that I remember it as one single block of gaming. I don't have individual memories of call outs of like achievements or different games or gaming with people. And so the kind of person I am, that all glommed together into one thing. But a parent in one of the talks that I was giving said, oh, I completely disagree with you. I remember I was with Susan when I got a high score on this one game, and we had so much fun talking about it and what our strategy was. And it sounds like, Brianna, you're the same way, that those things are individualized for you and they do have meaning. And therefore, awesome. There's no blanket statement on this. It's about who you are and what brings you joy, right?
Some of the best parts of my marriage have been the yearly Peggle World Series that my husband and I play. George is laughing. She knows how hardcore this is.
Bree it's a serious rivalry between her and Frank. Like serious. There's rules. There's a lot on the line.
They're very complicated
rules.
And
the Peggle master, just so that she really
I talked to the developers of Peggle one time, and I started asking them about like quirks in the game engine, and they had no idea what I was talking about. Like the actual people that coded the game. That's how much of that I've played.
That happened to me once. I was sitting on a plane next to a guy who ended up being the project manager for Plants vs. Zombies, which when my kids were little, that was my complete release. I played Plants vs. Zombies so much I got RSI. And and when he heard me going so deep on game theory, I think he was concerned for my mental health.
That's also a PopCap game. So this is the same company, right?
Too good. You guys, thank you so much for this time. All of our guests are on Twitter, and we will have their handles in the show notes, I think. But I just so appreciate your time on this Sunday, and I love hosting the show. The only downside is I don't get to hang out with Leo. So anyways, guys, nice spending the afternoon with you, and another Twit is in the can.
Doing the Twit.